The Miami Slam is fast approaching, and with the challenges having just been announced, we are going to try and predict who is most likely to win the men's short distance category. To recap, our races include the 1500 meter Olympic podium in Hocker, Kerr and Nuguse, and the current 800 meter world champ and Olympic silver medalist Arop. Last slam, Arop dominated the 800 meter, though had a poor performance in the 15, coming 6th with a 3:39. He still placed the highest overall of the races in the Kingston slam, coming 2nd. Nuguse came 3rd overall with a 6th place finish in the 800 and a 2nd place finish in the 1500 meter, after Kingston challenger and 800 meter Olympic gold medalist Emmanuel Wanyoni pulled an upset victory. Hocker came 4th, placing 3rd and 5th in the 1500 meter and 800 meter respectively, and Kerr placed the worst of all races, coming 7th place with a 5th after tightening up in the last 50 of the 1500 meter and dead last in the 800, where he just seemed to have nothing left in the tank. Our new challengers this slam are Timothy Chariot, Peter Bow, Tsepo Tite and Kethobagile Hangora. Chariot was of course a former 1500 meter world champ from 2019, Tokyo silver medalist and a serial 3:28 runner. He also boasts an impressive 1:43 PB over the 800. That said, he has somewhat been on the decline in the middle distances recently and intends to make this his final middle distance season before moving up to the 5 and 10k. Peter Bow is the Australian 800 meter record holder, boasting a 1:43.79 that he ran barely 2 weeks before this slam. He also has a respectable 3:34 PB in the 1500 meter that he ran in 2023. His most recent 1500 meter run was a 3:37 in late March. Tsepo Tite is a South African runner boasting a very recent 3:32 PB in the 1500 meter. He also has a 1:44 mid PB in the 800 meter that he set in 2022. Finally, Kethobagile Hangora is an 800 meter specialist hailing from Botswana with another super recent PB of 1:43.88 in the event. He is, however, by far the weakest in the 1500 meter with a 3:48 PB in the distance. Overall, it's a solid field with some more 800 meter bias in the challengers, just like last time. Whilst it may not have the X factor of an Emmanuel Wanyoni, I do think this field is actually closer and more competitive than the Kingston Slam, so we have two very good races on our hands. Let's start with the 1500 meter. How will the race be won and who do I think will win it? Well, as always, this question largely depends on how tactical the race will be. Consistent viewers of the channel and distance events generally will know that a slower race that comes down to a fast finish at the end will favour the 800 meter specialist, because they theoretically have more raw speed in their legs than the endurance based 1500 meter runners. We of course saw this play out in last slam's 1500 meter with 800 meter specialist Wanyoni taking the win after a pretty tactical race. That said, if the 1500 meter runners can actually keep a fast pace this time, the 800 runners will not have the endurance to keep up and will be left in the dust. As you would expect, Hocker, Nuguse and Chariot are my favourites to win this race given their credentials in the event. I would normally add Kerr to this list, but quite honestly, his fitness seems to be really lacking in the event currently, so it's hard to imagine him beating these guys. This is unless the race becomes more tactical, as I think Kerr is a very strong positional runner and always makes sure he is in the right place at the right time. I don't want to count him out, but I wouldn't say he's one of the favourites. I don't think Arop or Hangora will be in any contention unless the race is comically slow, let's say above 340s. They just don't have the endurance to do well in this event right now, so I expect them to place 7th and 8th respectively. For the others, it's a bit of a toss-up given their similar PBs, but a dark horse in this race for me is Tsepo Tite. Although he has nowhere near the accolades of a Hocker and Nuguse, his form is looking really strong this early into the season. A 3:32 is nothing to scoff at in April, it's enough that he will likely be able to keep up with whatever pace the race will be set at, unless Nuguse or Chariot try and front run a 3:30 time, which seems unlikely at this point in the season. If you add this to the fact that he has reasonable raw speed if you look at his 800 meter times, and he could do pretty well in a slower race too. But how do I see the race playing out exactly? Well, unlike last time, we actually have a more natural frontrunner for the race in Timothy Chariot, who regularly leads or starts very close to the front in both paced and non-paced races. Sometimes he hangs back, but when he feels the pace is letting up a little bit, he starts to take the lead and push it on. Kingston had an issue where no one was really a natural frontrunner, and that led to some slow times. Nuguse has front run before, but only tends to do so when he's the favourite. Chariot enjoys a fast race and is usually in good shape early in the season. As his kick is not as strong as the other runners like Hocker or the 800 guys, his best bet to win is to make it fast and run the legs off everyone else. He's used to doing this as well, as he was kind of the Ingebrigtsen of 1500 meter running before the Norwegian's dominance began. It is possible that Hocker starts off at the front like he did in Kingston. I don't think he should unless he's trying to slow the race down. Regardless, unless the pace is already fast, which seems unlikely if Hocker's front running, I think Chariot will overtake him quickly and make it a real race. Kerr and Nuguse will likely adopt their usual tactics of sticking to the front runner like glue, with a plan to start an extended kick by pressing them in with 6 600 meters to go. It's hard to say if Kerr will be as aggressive as he was last race given his form, but he strikes me as the kind of runner that will go for the win and risk gassing out rather than racing more conservatively in the hopes of securing a second or third place. Now here's where things are going to become very specific and speculative, but I imagine that Kerr, Nuguse and Hocker will be sitting on Chariot in that order. Kerr will press him first but find himself running on the outer bend. Nuguse and Hocker will slot in a little bit behind. TT and Bol will also be in the mix if the race is slow enough, but maybe a little bit behind the other guys. Kerr will tighten up again after a fast race and fade. Chariot will start to fade in the last 50 meters, leaving it to a Hocker and Nuguse showdown. That's I think the most likely scenario, but it's so specific I can't say it with any certainty. I'm basing this off Kerr's lack of fitness going into the race and the fact that Chariot does seem to have a bit of a habit of going out a little harder than he can manage. We saw him fade quite badly in the Olympic finals for instance. If the race is fast, say a mid 3:32 or quicker, I see Nuguse having the strength to beat Hocker. If the race is slow, let's say a 3:34 or above, then Hocker will win with his speed. It's worth noting though that Hocker may not be in excellent shape currently based on his Kingston slam. He did make a comeback in the last 200 meters of the race, but he didn't seem super confident to maintain the lead during the third lap, even though it probably was the better option tactically. If Hocker is in decent shape, then you would expect his kick to beat all the other 1500 runners, but this is just one of those things that's impossible to know until race day. If I had to guess, I'm going to bet on the Goose winning this one. He came second in last slam's race and seems to be in the best shape of all of them. But if Hocker is in good shape and the race is semi-tactical, then he would be my favourite going in. I'm just going to take a gamble that the first factor is not the case. It's also possible that Chariot just runs away from everyone. I do find it hard to think he'll outrun Nuguse personally, but it is a possibility. And let's also not forget Tite, who is in strong 1500 meter form as well. He is definitely a medal threat for this race and could even steal a win here if the race is too slow. Now luckily the 800 meter feels a little easier to guess what will happen. Of course, the main favourite is Arop, who won the previous race in dominant fashion. Although it was a 1:45, he ran it in incredibly windy conditions and the likes of Wanyoni and Hoppel were unable to keep up. This shows that he is both in form and willing to take out a race hard from the start, which is probably the right move because his fitness is best on paper. It's worth noting that Bol and Hangora have run 1:43 high times recently, so they are not out of the picture by any means, but I simply think that Arop is just a bit better than them. He has run season openers faster than these guys' PBs, and he won't let the race become a tactical affair to his disadvantage. I also doubt the 1500 will go well for him unfortunately, so he will need to go for broke in the 800 to make sure he places well in the overall standings. As for the other guys, I would bet Tite will be the first 1500 meter specialist home. He has the fastest PB and has run 2 solid 1:45s this season. It's possible that Hocker could challenge him. He came 5th behind Goli, who has a 1:44 PB and seems to have the most natural speed in his legs, but I'm still going to bet on Tite to win that. Nuguse is more of a strength runner to my mind and Kerr is just not in great shape. Chariot could be a factor, but looking at how he typically opens his seasons in the 800 meter, he's not going to be running anything special. So for my final 800 meter picks, I would say Arop, Bol, then Hangora, with Hocker and Tite battling for 4th place, with Tite probably taking the win there. Honestly, Kerr risks another dead last position if his fitness hasn't picked up. Yes, the win was bad, but 150 is pretty abysmal and none of these guys are super slow 800 runners. So tallying all that up, who are my picks for the Miami Slam? Well, it's tough to say. I think whoever wins the 1500 meter is the favourite for the entire slam. Although Arop is a decent favourite for the 800, I just don't see the 1500 going too well for him. 14 points is the best case scenario for him, assuming he beats Hangora in the 15. Not enough if you're trying to win the overall slam. That leaves Nuguse, Hocker and Chariot as the main names. I'm writing off Kerr due to his poor fitness and also because it gives us less names to think about. If Hocker shows up on form, he would normally be my pick to win, but I find it hard to believe he will make a super strong turnaround within a month of Kingston. I also think that Hocker will take a little while for strength to kick in. He says himself that speed comes more naturally to him than strength, so expecting him to run a 3:32 or 3:33 early season might be a little too much to ask, especially given his Kingston form. I don't want to count him out, but he's not my favourite to win. Chariot is an unknown quantity as he has not raced at all this season, bar a 2nd place behind Wanyoni at the Kenyan Cross many months ago. His last season openers were 3:31 and 3:32, but they were both in paced races. He has been mixing up his training recently, so it will be interesting to see his form, but given that this race is not paced and he is likely going to lead a good chunk of it, I don't see him running much faster than a 3:32. He could run away with it, but I am not so convinced. I think Nuguse is the safest pick here. He is in good form, has great strength over the distance, so I imagine him sticking to Chariot closely and kicking to victory. I think he has a good chance of beating Kerr and Chariot in the 800 and an outside shot of beating Hocker. Even if he fails, that puts him on 15 points. Unless the 800 meter is won by someone other than Arop, a possibility but unlikely in my opinion, the only way someone can beat Nuguse if he wins is if they place 2nd in both events, which no runner has any real chance of doing unless the 1500 meter is super tactical again. Now what you may have noticed is that I said Nuguse is the safest pick, but he is not my personal pick. I understand why many would pick Nuguse, Hocker or Chariot given their abilities. This is probably the most rational option. But if you're a real track fan, you know that's not the pick to go for, okay? Me and you, we're not sheeple. We don't follow what everyone else tells us to think, okay? We are the shepherd. We know what's going to happen. We know that Cole Hocker, Yared Nuguse, they're not really the contenders. The real contender, and hear me out, it's Seport Site for the Miami Slam title. This may sound like rage bait, this may sound like I'm just chatting crap, but I genuinely do think he has a good chance of taking the title. The thing that we learn from most early season races, especially the Kingston Slam, is that form is everything right now. Yes, it's all well and good if you've run 3:27 in the peak of the Olympics, but can you run a good time at this point in the season? Seport Site, although his personal best is 4 seconds slower than all the other guys, has proven that he can run 3:32s in early April. And that means he is most likely going to be able to keep up with whatever Chariot and Nuguse throw at him pace-wise. Because Chariot, who is most likely going to be leading, has run about 3:31 and 3:32 for his last 2 season openers, and those were in pace races. So it seems unlikely they're going to be able to run the legs off him. Then if you look at the fact that he has season openers in the 800 that are faster than most of those guys' 800 meter personal bests, he has a really good shot of collecting say 4 or 5 points in the 800. So we have a guy with decent strength, great form, and decent speed as well on the home straight based off his 800 meter times. Meaning he has a genuine shot of taking the win in the 1500 meter and the maximum 12 points, as long as these guys don't run a 3:30 race, which is pretty unlikely to say the least. If you think about the fact that he's probably flying under the radar a little bit as well, we've seen with Hocker what that can do for you in an Olympic final. Let's say Chariot, Nuguse and Hocker are battling out, Kerr's in the mix as well, they're all fighting each other, they're tiring themselves out, they're forcing each other to run the outside line. If Seport Site slots in, runs the inside line, and is able to pounce the last 100 or so, he has a real chance of pulling an upset victory. I completely understand why people pick Nuguse or Hocker as a favourite, because their accolades speak for themselves. But don't sleep on Seport Site. And you know what, I'm making him my official prediction for the Miami Slam title. It feels a bit crazy doing this, it feels a bit stupid, but we can't keep doing all of this, oh I'm gonna bet on the Olympic medalist to win the race type of nonsense, okay? We gotta add a bit of spice, we gotta add a bit of danger into these predictions, okay? And I had to tell you in person for this, okay? I turned on my webcam so I can look you in the eye when I give you these predictions, okay? So tune into the race to see if this bold prediction comes to be true. It's probably gonna age like sour milk, but there you go. Honestly though, a hot take about this field is that it's arguably more competitive than last Slam's challenges. Yes, you have the X factor of Wanyoni and big 800 meter names like Hopper in the mix as well, but this time GST have picked some more generalist runners who are actually in really good shape right now. So I think the races will be a bit more balanced than they were last time. There probably will be a gap between the 3 leaders in the 800 and everyone else, but the 1500 only has Hangura and Arop who will run super slow. The others are all mid 330 runners at least. Of course, people will be sad to see that Kessler is not in the field, but I'm still excited for this race. Let me know your picks in the comments below. I learned a lot from you guys last time, especially those who pointed out Wanyoni as the real dark horse. And I've mentioned it before, but I have been milking the cow GST quite aggressively for a while now, so the next few videos will hopefully be on something else. Though if the races are really interesting, expect to see a breakdown of 1 or 2 of them to come. If you want to see a video on how Russian hackers expose some dirty secrets amongst the top Olympic athletes, then click on this video here. If you want to see more GST content, then I've made a playlist for you guys here. Let's see how regularly it gets updated over the next couple of weeks. Regardless, thank you very much for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy training.